you will notice that while the starch and other substances are only made of 3 elements, the active protoplasm is made of these 3 added to a 4th, nitrogen, and it also contains phosphorus and sulphur. And so, hour after hour and day after day, our primrose goes on pumping up water and ammonia from its roots to its leaves, drinking in carbonic acid from the air, and using the sun waves to work them all up into food to be sent to all parts of its body. In this way these leaves act, you see, as the stomach of the plant, and digest its food. Sometimes more water is drawn up into the leaves than can be used, and then the leaf opens thousands of little mouths in the skin of its undersurface, which let the drops out just as drops of perspiration ooze through our skin when we are overheated. These little mouths, which are called stomates, A, figure 42, are made of 2 flattened cells fitting against each other. When the air is damp and the plant has too much water, these lie open and let it out. But when the air is dry and the plant wants to keep as much water as it can, then they are closely shut. There are as many as 100,000 of these mouths under one apple leaf, so you may imagine how small they often are. Plants which only live 1 year, such as mignonette, the sweet pea, and the poppy, take in just enough food to supply their daily wants, and to make the seeds we shall speak of presently. Then, as soon as their seeds are ripe, their roots begin to shrivel, and water is no longer carried up. The green cells can no longer get food to digest, and they themselves are broken up by the sunbeams, and turn yellow, and the plant dies. But many plants are more industrious than the stock and mignonette, and lay by store for another year, and our primrose is one of these. Look at this thick solid mass below the primrose leaves, out of which the roots spring. See the plant in the foreground of the heading of the lecture. This is really the stem of the primrose hidden underground, and all the starch, albuminoids, etc., which the plant can spare as it grows, are sent down into this underground stem and stored up there to lie quietly in the ground through the long winter, and then, when the warm spring comes, this stem begins to send out leaves for a new plant. We have now seen how a plant springs up, feeds itself, grows, stores up food, withers and dies. But we have said nothing yet about its beautiful flowers, or how it forms its seeds. If we look down close to the bottom of the leaves in a primrose root in springtime, we shall always find 3 or 4 little green buds nestling in among the leaves, and day by day we may see the stalk of these buds lengthening till they reach up into the open sunshine, and then the flower opens and shows its beautiful pale yellow crown. We all know that seeds are formed in the flower, and that the seeds are necessary to grow into new plants. But do we know the history of how they are formed, or what is the use of the different parts of the bud? Let us examine them all, and then I think you will agree with me that this is not the least wonderful part of the plant. Remember that the seed is the one important thing, and then notice how the flower protects it. First, look at the outside green covering, which we call the calyx. See how closely it fits in the bud, so that no insects can creep in to gnaw the flower, nor any harm come to it from cold or blight. Then, when the calyx opens, notice that the yellow leaves which form the crown or corolla are each alternate with one of the calyx leaves, so that anything which got past the first covering would be stopped by the second. Lastly, when the delicate corolla has opened out, look at those curious yellow bags just at the top of the tube, B2, figure 43. what is their use? But I fancy I see 2 or 3 little questioning faces which seem to say, "I see no yellow bags at the top of the tube." Well, I cannot tell whether you can or not in the specimen you have in your hand. For one of the most curious things about primrose flowers is that some of them have these yellow bags at the top of the tube, and some of them hidden down right in the middle. But this I can tell you: those of you who have got no yellow bags at the top will have a round knob there, 1a, figure 43, and will find the yellow bags B buried in the tube. Those, on the other hand, who have the yellow bags 2b, figure 43, at the top, will find the knob A halfway down the tube. Now for the use of these yellow bags, which are called the anthers of the stamens, the stalk on which they grow being called the filament or thread. If you can manage to split them open, you will find that they have a yellow powder in them, called pollen, the same as the powder which sticks to your nose when you put it into a lily. And if you look with a magnifying glass at the little green knob in the centre of the flower, you will probably see some of this yellow dust sticking on it. A, figure 43. We will leave it there for a time and examine the body called the pistil, to which the knob belongs. Pull off the yellow corolla, which will come off quite easily, and turn back the green leaves. You will then see that the knob stands on the top of a column, and at the bottom of this column there is a round ball, SV, which is a vessel for holding the seeds. In this diagram A, figure 43, I have drawn the whole of this curious ball and column as if cut in half, so that we may see what is in it. In the middle of the ball, in a cluster, there are a number of round, transparent little bodies, looking something like round green orange cells full of juice. They are really cells full of protoplasm, with one little dark spot in each of them, which by and by is to make our little plantlet that we found in the seed. These then are the seeds, you will say. Not yet. They are only ovules, or little bodies which may become seeds. If they were left as they are, they would all wither and die. But those little grains of pollen which we saw sticking to the knob at the top are coming down to help them. As soon as these yellow grains touch the sticky knob, or stigma as it is called, they throw out tubes which grow down the column until they reach the ovules. In each one of these they find a tiny hole, and into this they creep, and then they pour into the ovule all the protoplasm from the pollen grain which is sticking above, and this enables it to grow into a real seed, with a tiny plantlet inside. This is how the plant forms its seed to bring up new little ones next year, while the leaves and the roots are at work preparing the necessary food. Think sometimes when you walk in the woods how hard at work the little plants and big trees are all around you. You breathe in the nice fresh oxygen they have been throwing out, and little think that it is they who are making the country so fresh and pleasant, and that while they look as if they were doing nothing but enjoying the bright sunshine, they are really fulfilling their part in the world by the help of this sunshine, earning their food from the ground, working it up, turning their leaves where they can best get light, and in this it is chiefly the violet sun waves that help them, growing even at night by making new cells out of the food they have taken in the day, storing up for the winter, putting out their flowers and making their seeds, and all the while smiling so pleasantly in quiet nooks and sunny dells that it makes us glad to see them. But why should the primroses have such golden crowns? Plain